All right, so good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. It's time to make my official internet prediction that I did last week for the Super Bowl. We're going to be breaking down this game a little bit. I'm not a professional expert or anything. I'm not paid to do this. This is just me, just a fan, you know, watching games and then just kind of putting my own spin on it. So, in the previous video I did, I had 23 simulations that I did on Madden 21, and I simmed a few more too, just kind of for fun to see what would happen as well, see if it would kind of follow the same line. And so in that simulation, as I talked about, the Chiefs won 16 of 23, or was it 17? Yeah, they were 17 and 6. I'm sorry, they won 17 and lost 6 times to Tampa Bay, so about a 74% winning percentage. Um, the the people over at CBS have put it at about 52, 53% on the Chiefs, so a little lower than what I experienced in my simulations. Granted, mine was a video game, but I tried to get it as close as possible in terms of like the starting lineups and who was out, who was going to play, who wasn't. But Madden is not it's not a simulation. It's a video game. It's an arcade video game at that. So, but it I think it still does a pretty good job of getting close. So the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. It's probably somewhere like 65% edge to the Chiefs in this game. This game will be tougher than the Chiefs had against the Buffalo Bills in the AFC Championship game. So so I want to get into how I see this game going, and first I want to address some of the narrative that's out there right now. The first thing is the talk about how the Chiefs are missing their four starting offensive linemen. So, or four of their five starting offensive linemen. Um, the Chiefs have been playing with the same offensive line since week 5 or week 6, and so they are going to be without Eric Fisher. So that's one guy that is down. Obviously, he got injured with the blown Achilles last week in the Buffalo game. But the one thing about our current starting lineup of offensive linemen, they're not world beaters. They're not Hall of Famers by any means, but they're solid enough, and they're good enough for Patrick Mahomes, and they're good enough for Andy Reid to scheme around them to put them in positions to be successful. And that's why the Chiefs have a lot of motion. That's why they do a lot of sprint out plays where Patrick Mahomes sprints out to the right or to the left to get into optimal throwing lanes where he can move defenders around and kind of control where they're going to go. It's weird to say that a quarterback can control where the defenders go, especially the defensive backs. But Patrick Mahomes is better than than any quarterback I've seen in a long time. And by me saying that, that doesn't mean I'm saying every other quarterback sucks. It's like this false dichotomy, you know, in in social media today, where if you say one thing, that must mean that you hate the other thing that you are not talking about. So, um, but anyway, there's this narrative that the Chiefs are without all these offensive linemen, and the thing that keeps getting parroted over and over again, especially by Tampa fans that I've seen in comment sections on YouTube and on various Facebook posts, is that if they don't talk about four offensive linemen, they talk about two. They talk about, they're missing both of their starting tackles. Okay, we are missing Eric Fisher. That is correct. We're missing Eric Fisher, who is our left tackle. But then their other tackle they're talking about is Mitchell Schwartz. Look, Mitchell Schwartz hasn't played since the Oakland game. And that's the last. Subsequently, that's the last game, legitimately the game the Chiefs lost, or that's the last game Patrick Mahomes lost. We'll put it that way because he didn't play when they played all the backups in Week 17. They haven't. Patrick Mahomes, or I'm sorry, Mitchell Schwartz hasn't played since towards the beginning of the season. It was October, so I don't understand how that has any relevance to today. Like all of a sudden the Chiefs get all the way to the Super Bowl and oh my gosh, we don't have Mitchell Schwartz. Seriously, they've done just fine this year without him. So we'll see what the game plan is coming out. But basically the Chiefs from their game plan last week, their offensive line last week, they're missing one offensive lineman from last week, and they're missing one offensive lineman from when they played Tampa Bay the first time. And we all know that the Chiefs beat Tampa the first time. They had a big lead. They It was very obvious the Chiefs took their foot off the gas. Now, did Tampa make some adjustments in that game? Yeah, I think they did because Tyreek Hill was actually on pace to get over 1,000 yards in that game after his first quarter, and obviously he didn't. And they made some good adjustments down the stretch, but Tom Brady and the offense got 2 touchdowns at the end of the game to make the game look a lot closer. But Tampa never had the ball when they were down a score. The last time they had the ball, they were down 2 scores. They never got the ball with the on a drive where they could potentially tie the game or take the lead. So that's an important distinction to know. And the game obviously was a 3-point win for the Chiefs. It was a 10-point lead, and then the Chiefs got the ball and then kneeled on it, and the game was over. Um, so it was really a 10-point lead up until the Tampa got that last ditch touchdown and tried to. I can't. I'll have to go back and look. I don't know if they. I'm assuming they probably tried an onside kick and they failed, and the Chiefs just kneeled on the ball and the game was over. So look, if you've got to get garbage time touchdowns and then convert multiple onside kicks to try to win a game, like that game is not as close as you think. Now, credit to Buffalo, credit to Tampa Bay for coming back in that game, and maybe the Chiefs were a little too lax on defense in trying to maybe just get out of Dodge with a win. But fact of the matter is that it's interesting when a team plays another team again. Like the same thing happened last week against Buffalo. Everybody said, "Well, you can't take anything away from that first meeting. The first meeting doesn't mean anything." And the people that say that are always the team that loses. Why is that? I mean, that's a rhetorical question. We know why that is. It's because they were saying, well, we're really better than that, and we'll beat you this time. Well, okay, let's get a little more analysis than that. So, when it comes down to this Tampa Bay team, obviously Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback in the history of the NFL, and I don't think there's any arguing that. Um, I think it took him a while, but I think he ultimately he did pass Joe Montana, in my opinion. I would still put Montana as number 2 on that list, just because he was one of the most clutch quarterbacks of all time. So this isn't a video talking about the top 10 quarterbacks of all time, but Brady definitely is at the top of that list. And this narrative out there that by really upset Brady fans, I'm not going to say Tampa fans because Tampa have only had him for a year, but by Brady fans who are somehow taking it as a slight that ESPN is, not just bowing down to Tom Brady at every opportunity. Come on, stop inventing things to be upset about. And it seems like every time they're not bowing down to Brady, they throw out Patrick Mahomes, and then they trash Mahomes. And I was like, okay, guys, both can be true. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL currently. He is not the best quarterback of all time. He may be someday when he retires and towards the end of his career. We may look back in his career and say, hey, you know what? Patrick Mahomes has 7 Super Bowl titles. He went 9 times, and he's got 6 league MVPs, and he's the all-time leader in yardage and touchdown passes. Yeah, that would probably be the best quarterback of all time. But it's going to take a lot of work to dethrone Tom Brady, and he's not going to do it. He hasn't done it yet, and he won't do it if he wins this game. Even though he'll be up 3-2 on Brady in terms of their head-to-head matchups, look, that's not going to put him above Tom Brady. Okay, so and I'm a Chiefs fan, so let's just get that out of the way right now. So this offense led by Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback in NFL history, it's an offense that has some pretty good weapons on it. It's got Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, who I still believe is a shell of his former self. They've got 2 tight ends, obviously, and Rob Gronkowski. I can't say that name very well. We'll just say Gronk and Brake, or Brait. I don't know if it's a T or a K, but they have 2 very talented tight ends as well, and that's one thing that the Chiefs have had a difficult time covering this year is the tight end. Mike Evans and Curtis Godwin, I think is his name, or I think his last name is Godwin or Goodwin or something like that. They've got some talented in obviously Antonio Brown, and then they've got two good running backs, Fournette and Jones. They've got some offensive talent. They really do. Um, I don't think they have any better offensive talent than Buffalo has, or that Buffalo had. Obviously, I think they have a better quarterback. I think Brady is still. Oh, would I put Brady still top three currently? I'd probably put Brady fourth currently. I think the top four quarterbacks in the NFL made the championship games. Mahomes, Allen, Brady, and Rodgers. I would still put Aaron Rodgers ahead of Tom Brady, even though I would put them maybe like number two and number three. So they're right there. Um, so obviously you have a future Hall of Fame quarterback piloting the offense. You have talented, skilled players. So, and they won 11 games. They lost five. Where they're susceptible, as ironic as it sounds, is Tom Brady. And we saw that in the second half of the Green Bay game last week, where Tom Brady did everything in his power to give the game back to Green Bay. He made awful decisions. When he's facing with a blitz, he doesn't want to he doesn't like pressure. He doesn't like to get hit. And so he threw the ball up on just some horrible passes. And for someone who has been around as long as Brady, who I think has the game intelligence of Brady, it's really surprising to see that. And we've seen that more often this year than we have in the past. And I think it's just a product of Brady's age and maybe his declining skills, his declining physical skill set. He's still up there. He's still going to probably play for another 3 or 4 years. I mean, the guy looks like he could probably play, you know, till he's 50, maybe past then. And he's definitely in great shape. Um, and so one of the things where the Chiefs are going to have to do is they're going to have to get pressure on Tom Brady. And when you get pressure on Tom Brady, you can force him into making mistakes. Um, Mike Evans is a talented but very maddening wide receiver. He'll have games where he'll look like Jerry Rice, and he'll have games where he looks like Lance Long. So Chiefs fans will know the Lance Long reference there, the guy that just it was just awful wide receivers. Back when the Chiefs just had just when they were routinely win 3 or 4 games. Um, yeah, but there are times when he just does not do well at all. Um, but again, that's kind of the ups and downs you get from really talented wide receivers like that. So and Rob Gronkowski, he is a shell of his former self as well. I think he had one catch last week for 27 yards. He's not that much of a threat anymore. Their other tight end break. He's much more of a he's the one the Chiefs really need to be more concerned about. So, and I was watching this one YouTube video about who was going to be you couldn't name the quarterback, but who was going to be the player that was going to be kind of the unsung hero or the player that the other team would hurt them and they may not know. And like several people in this video, they talked about how Rob Gronkowski would be that guy because he always tortures the Chiefs. And I'm like, yes, the Chiefs have really struggled against Gronkowski in the past, but that that's in the past. And it's not like it that's not like the past like 4 weeks ago. It's like the past like 3 to 4 years ago. So Gronkowski is not the same player as he used to be, and he's a serviceable tight end, who can still make some plays, but he's not a game changer by any means anymore like he used to be, like in his first 5-6 years in the league. Tampa is good enough, in my opinion, to get 4 touchdowns around that mark, be in between 24 and 30 points on this Chiefs defense. They're good enough. Now, the Chiefs defense is also good to the point where they could hold Tampa to 2 or 3 scores as well and really frustrate Tom Brady, especially if the blitz gets there. And that's going to be the key point. So let's flip the script here and talk about uh, the other side of the football, when the Chiefs have the ball versus when Tampa is on defense. Tampa Bay is not good in the secondary. So, in most NFL secondaries are suspect because the game is so slanted towards the passing offense. So even if you have serviceable people in the secondary, you can probably make enough plays to get by. But what makes the secondary better is your defensive line. And there's been a lot of talk this week about how the Tampa defensive line is just going to wreak havoc on the four backups of the Chiefs offensive line. Okay, first we already talked about that false narrative there. The Chiefs have one backup playing in this game. The rest have been starters for almost the entire season. Um, yeah, Tampa Bay has some good defensive ends. They've got a big guy in the middle. Here's the thing. They're talked up a lot. But when you really break it down, Tampa's defensive line is, I'll say they are above average to lean towards good. Maybe I'm being a little biased. We'll say they're good. We'll say that their defensive line is good. San Francisco's defensive line last year was outstanding, and I tried to downplay their defensive line last year because I was like, it's Nick Bosa. He's one guy, but they also had I can't remember the names of the other guys on the San Francisco defensive line. It'll come to me later, but they had a host of guys up front, and they didn't have to blitz, and they got through the Chiefs' offensive line last year, and they pressured Mahomes, and they made Mahomes struggle. They got him out of his game, out of his rhythm. Now they did that for 3 quarters, and then Mahomes, they finally found a way to get around it in the fourth quarter, and the Chiefs, obviously came back and they scored 21 points on him in the fourth quarter and won the game by 11. One of the things that is going to be difficult, in my opinion, for Tampa Bay here, they're used to facing quarterbacks that don't move and that don't do the sprint out options or sprint out runs to put yourself in a better position to throw like Patrick Mahomes does. We saw that in the first game of the season. Now you can't just say, okay, well the first the game's going to play out exactly like it did in the regular season, and the Chiefs are going to win 27-24. Okay, that's an oversimplification. Okay, and when the Kansas City Chiefs have the ball, they are going to put their offensive line and they're going to put their quarterback and their skill players in positions to neutralize the speed off the edge of Tampa Bay. Andy Reid does this in every single matchup. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know how the Chiefs lost to Oakland earlier this year, or Las Vegas. I think I said Oakland in the last video too. I don't know how they lost to those guys. The Chiefs aren't a perfect team, but I don't see how you stop their offense. Even in that game that they lost, they scored 32, 33 points. And it was just, the defense just could not stop Derek Carr when it mattered. Derek Carr, Derek Carr. Yeah. Okay, not David Carr, not the old Texans quarterback. The Chiefs have punted one time in this postseason. So if you take out the kneel downs at the end of games or the end of halves, which obviously are, that's a strategic decision to do that. Sometimes, obviously at the end of games is to win the game. The Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes has 13 possessions that he has led in the postseason, or 14 possessions, and they have scored on 13 of them. I don't know how you stop that. You could slow it down potentially, but here's the problem. If you play man, Tyreek Hill and Mecole Hardman and Sammy Watkins are going to run past you, and Mahomes is just going to hit them down the field on seam patterns, and the Chiefs are going to get down the field in 3 plays and score a touchdown. If they decide to drop into a zone to protect one of the deeper routes, well, they can still. It depends on what kind of zone. If it's a cover 2, you got to kind of pick your poison. But if they play, a cover 3, the slant routes become much more prevalent. If they play a cover 1, they just run wasp all day long, and they basically they flood one side, and so they get the safety to commit one way or the other, and then they attack the other side. Um, but if they but also if they run that zone, that's when you can hit your backs. You can hit Travis Kelce right in the middle of that zone where there's always a soft spot. Um, and Kelce against anybody is a mismatch. It doesn't matter who you put on him. Kelce against anybody at this time of his career is a mismatch. He's the best tight end in football, and in my opinion, I'm going to say he's one of the best receivers in football right now. The guy he's on a different level. Now he's not going to always be there. Age is going to catch up to him at some point. And some guys are going to surpass him skill wise because his skills will deteriorate as he gets older. But right now, in my opinion, he is one of the best, if not the best, pass catching skill player in the NFL. And then of course there's Mahomes, and there is something about Patrick Mahomes that is hard to quantify. The guy he's won a Super Bowl, he's won a Super Bowl MVP, he's won a league MVP, he's been All Pro twice, I believe twice. And if the Chiefs win tomorrow, he's probably going to be the MVP of the Super Bowl. Because typically a lot of times it goes to the quarterback. Especially if he has a good game. Not having to have a great game. Quarterback has a good game in the Super Bowl and this team wins, he's the MVP. That's just how it works. Um, Patrick Mahomes has something about him that is not measurable. You can talk about his sixth sense. You can talk about his heart, his determination. There is something about him that Chiefs fans no longer fear. They don't have this sense of dread going into a game. I mean, we used to be just terrified. Man, we're 13-3. We're going to face the Broncos, but man, I just don't know if Elvis Grbac can get it done, or I don't know if Trent Green can get it done against the Colts, or can Matt Castle get it done against the Ravens, or you know, the Chiefs have the best quarterback in the NFL right now. And in the NFL, it's a very simple game. The better team, or the better quarterback, usually wins the game. That's not always, okay? Mahomes hasn't. He's lost some games. He's lost 9 times in his 3 years as a starter. Think about that. He's averaged 3 losses a year. Okay, he's lost 1 time in the playoffs, and we know what happened in that game that he lost. The Chiefs had a won. If not, it would a game-sealing interception. If not for D Ford lining up in the neutral zone. So, again, what do you do? Um, so Patrick Mahomes has that ability to just will his team to a victory. Even last year in the Super Bowl when he was playing, I would say he was playing one of his worst games of his career through 3 quarters, and then played one of his best quarters in his career in the fourth quarter. And think about that. You play basically your worst football game of your NFL career in the Super Bowl for 3 quarters, and then but then you're able to overcome it by what you do in the fourth quarter. Your 1 quarter is able to overcome your worst performance in your career in the first 3 quarters against the best defense we've seen in the past 10 years. That is why I will always defer to Patrick Mahomes when it comes to making a prediction. Now, eventually, I'm going to keep picking the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes, and eventually they're going to lose a game. Okay, when I didn't make predictions like video predictions, online, for every single game this year, but in my head I did, before, the Chiefs should win this game. The only game I said the Chiefs would probably lose was the last game of the season when Mahomes didn't play. So I've only missed on one game this year, and that was the Oakland game. I had no reason to believe that the Chiefs would not win at home against Oakland. I mean Las Vegas. Gosh, I can't. I always say Oakland. Um, Tampa is not. Their defensive line is good, but it's not going to stop the Chiefs. They're not going to They're not going to turn this performance. This is not the 2002 Buccaneers where they're going to just get all these defensive touchdowns and score like 45, 48 points, whatever it was, or 50 points. That's just an ungodly amount of points that they scored in that Super Bowl and just trashed the Raiders. Um, that's not going to happen here. And people, you're overly optimistic. And I'm like, no, no. I look at the game objectively as much as I can, and I am so absolutely over the moon thrilled that Patrick Mahomes, who is the best quarterback in the NFL, it plays for the team that I cheer for. I've never had that opportunity. I've never had the opportunity until he was the quarterback of the Chiefs to cheer for my team, knowing that my team had the best quarterback in the NFL. I mean, there were times when I knew my team had the better quarterback in a matchup, especially when Trent Green was around. But by and large, every time we got to the playoffs, the Chiefs did not have the better quarterback in the matchup. Trent Green was not better than Peyton Manning. Alex Smith was not better than Ben Roethlisberger. Now, Alex Smith was better than Marcus Mariota, but that game that just goes back to the fact that Alex Smith wasn't good enough. He wasn't good enough, and he missed throws in that game. The Chiefs should never have lost that game. But of course, when a quarterback throws a touchdown pass to himself, um, the Chiefs always have weird things with the quarterback either fumbling the ball and picking up running in, or throwing the ball to himself, and it's just the Chiefs were a snake bit until Mahomes really became the starter. So it just proves that having the best quarterback is the recipe for winning football games. So what do I think the final score is going to be? Last week I got the score exactly right. I predicted 38-24, and lo and behold, the Chiefs won 38-24. I am under no illusion that I'm going to pick the score right this time. I was really confident earlier in the week about the Chiefs winning. The last couple of days, especially with Andy Reid's son, being involved in a very serious car accident where a young child is clinging to life. Obviously, his son is not going to be on the sideline for the game because he's like the linebackers coach. It's a horrendous situation. It appears that he was under the influence while he was driving, and there's no excuse for that. I mean, and he should face the full weight of the law. If it's proven what it is, obviously they took a blood sample and everything, and so I am very, very. I don't give any leeway for drunken driving and for driving under any type of influence, whether it's drugs or alcohol or whatever. And he should definitely pay the appropriate penalty under the law for that. Now, that's his deal. That's not a reflection on this football game. And there's a lot of people trying to make that connection. And let's worry about that family, and let's pray for that family and for that little child who is clinging to life. That family who had their life just turned upside down just a couple days before the Super Bowl. Obviously, I'm assuming they're here in Kansas City. I'm assuming they're Chiefs fans, and what a horrendous situation for them to have to go through. A team like, and then someone involved in the organization injures their young child through negligence, essentially. So there is that distraction factor, and Andy Reid is professional, and Andy Reid obviously he's got some demons when it comes to family life. Obviously, he lost a son to drugs, and obviously this son who's still around obviously has issues. And I really hope that the Reid family can figure things out. Now, I mean, his son is a grown man. His son is what in his late 30s. It's not like he's a teenager, and Andy Reid is not parenting him correctly as a teenager. This guy's a grown man who makes his own decisions, his own choices. I mean, if I was to go out and do something bad, I would really hope that people wouldn't go after my father, and say, oh, your son's is a loser because he did this bad thing, therefore you're a loser, because he's your son. That's not fair. The sins of the father or the sins of the son don't impact the father, and vice versa. I'm very firm believer on that. Um, so anyway, so there is the distraction factor potentially that could get in the way, but I think the Chiefs are a professional enough team to be able to at least put a mental block up there. They don't want to forget about it because it's something that they need to take care of. Um, and they should be there for that family who has obviously had their lives turned upside down. Um, so getting away from that, though, how do I see this game going? I see this game as similar to what I did in the Super Bowl last year. That being said, I don't think Tampa is going to have a lead in this game. I do think the game's going to be close. People are talking about the team that has the ball last is going to win. I don't. Well, if it's like tied or whatever, that definitely it probably would be a case. But at the end of the day, Kansas City is a better football team than Tampa. They have a better resume. They've done more this year, and I'm tired of hearing about the Chiefs winning games by a touchdown or less. I'm tired of hearing how all these excuses about trying to bring the Chiefs down a little bit. And I mean, when you win a Super Bowl and you clearly are still the best team in the league, there is a complacency factor. And it happened to the Broncos on their back-to-back runs as well. But then they turned it on in the playoffs and won two titles in a row. That with Elway's last season in the league. This is going to be a similar type situation. The Chiefs are going to win this game. I'm thinking it's going to be. I think the Chiefs are going to still get about the same amount of points as they did in the AFC Championship game. So I'm going to say the Chiefs are going to win this game. We'll say the Chiefs 38. I'm going to say Tampa Bay will get. I'll say 38-28. I do think Tampa will get some touchdowns and some scores, and I don't think Tampa is going to try to kick. They're going to kick any field goals. I think they're going to go for it on all fourth downs. They're going to put pressure on the Chiefs defense. So I think that's going to be some risk reward, and I think the Chiefs are going to be able to take advantage of that. I see this game going similar to like the Chiefs have like a 38-21 or like a 38-17 lead, something to that effect. They have a big lead. I think Tampa will get a late touchdown and try to claw back, but just won't be able to. So I think the Chiefs win by double digits. So I'm saying 38-28 by 10 points. Um, I see this game anywhere from a 10 to 14 point game. I don't see this as a one possession game. I don't see this as like a 28-27 win or CBS had their official picks like their computer or whatever. They said the Chiefs won 53% of the time and the final score was 29-28. I don't see that. So my simulations gave the Chiefs a 31-24 edge, a 7 point edge, a 30 or 31-25 6 point edge. Um, I think the Chiefs will get more than 31. I think they get another touchdown. I think they get up the upper 30s. So I think the score same amount of points as they did against Buffalo. I think they probably give up a few more legitimate points, but I still think the Chiefs win by 10. I'm going to go ahead and give the MVP to Patrick Mahomes because if the Chiefs score 38 points, unless they're all defensive touchdowns or all running rushing touchdowns by the running backs, I still think that Patrick Mahomes is going to be the player who's hoisting the MVP trophy and hoisting the Lombardi trophy for the second year in a row. So that's my official prediction: 38-28 Chiefs. Um, and it's going to be I think a similar thing where the Chiefs are going to be in the driver's seat and in the favorite to win the Super Bowl the minimum the next 4 years. And I'm not going to be crazy and make some crazy prediction for the next 4 years, but um, I think by the time that the Chiefs are having to recycle the next round of players, the next round of skill players, when Hill and Kelsey and these guys are starting to either retire or go to other places where the Chiefs can't afford them anymore. Um, I think Patrick Mahomes has 4 Super Bowl rings by that time. I really do. So you can't predict he's going to win it every year, but I think the Chiefs get it this year, and then in the next 4 seasons, I think the Chiefs win at least 2 of the next 4 after this year. So I think in a 6 year run, the Chiefs win 4 or 6 Super Bowls, which that might be the greatest 6 year run in NFL history. So I'd have to go back and look at that, but I don't know if the San Francisco or New England if they had something similar. But anyway, that's my official prediction, guys. 38-28 Chiefs. Uh, I will make another video at the conclusion of the Super Bowl. Hopefully, I'm not eating crow, but I will make one regardless. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Go Chiefs.